Thanks, Doreen. Many media organizations were quick to condemn the website's decision, among them The Guardian and the New York Times, which had in the past partnered with WikiLeaks. Critics say the release could put thousands of people named in the secret memos at risk. Patty Colhane reports.
Julian Assange made himself the face of WikiLeaks with a mission to take on the U.S. government and expose their darkest secrets.
The first casualty of war is the truth.
From video the military never wanted out, to the inner workings of the U.S. State Department, he got access to more than 250,000 confidential cables describing secret talks, private assessments, everything embassies thought Washington needed to know. Assange promised to go public, but slowly and carefully, with confidential names blacked out. But whether it was on purpose or by accident, all of the 251,000 documents are now available online, uncensored for the world to see. Cables like this one, giving the name and other personal details of a man who allegedly cooperated with U.S. officials against al-Qaeda, and this is just one example.
It puts individuals' security at risk, threatens our national security, and undermines our effort to work with countries to solve shared problems. We remain concerned about these illegal disclosures and about concerns and risks to individuals.
That's a much calmer tone than when the WikiLeaks story first broke and the Secretary of State had to go on a kind of worldwide apology tour.
We're investigating it, and as we've said, we will hold those responsible fully accountable.
Some legal experts say that if these new cables lead to anyone being harmed, Private Bradley Manning, the soldier accused of leaking the cables, and even Julian Assange could face serious charges.
If they can prove a link between the dissemination of information and somebody's death or somebody being put in great jeopardy, that person can be charged in a federal court for federal charges more serious than anybody contemplated.
The U.S. government isn't saying if new charges are possible. In fact, they're not saying much at all about these new cables that say so much more than anyone was prepared for.
Patty Colhane joins us now live from the White House. And Patty, you mentioned Julian Assange there in your report. What's the future for him? He's being universally vilified right now, including in his native Australia.
Well, as I mentioned, when this story broke months ago, pretty much everybody in Washington had a comment about it. But in the last week, really, it's been incredibly quiet. The only person speaking about it is at the State Department. The big focus, of course, has to be at the Justice Department. Right after the story broke, we saw the Attorney General come out and say, we will look at prosecuting Julian Assange, see if he broke any laws. Now, Assange said he was protected under the First Amendment, and a lot of legal experts said that he was protected because, remember, he had media partners that were doing the exact same thing that he was. The question is now that these cables have gone out, does he still have that protection, especially if it leads to somebody being harmed? That is by no means clear right now, but you can probably bet that that's something the Justice Department is looking at.
Patty, a number of documents have already been released and reported on. They've caused more embarrassment rather than put any people's lives in danger. How does this latest document drop, if I could put it that way, change things?
Well, first, just the sheer volume. There are so many more documents than anybody expected. I mean, 251,000 now on the web. It's going to take everyone a whole lot of time to get through that, but the most important distinction is whether it was WikiLeaks before or any of their media partners, what was happening, they would go through these documents and they would read them carefully. They would look for information that, like names and cell phone numbers, addresses, place of birth, family member names, all of the identifying things for these confidential informants that could easily lead somebody who wanted to do them harm to them. That information was blacked out. That used to be the case, but that wasn't the case with this latest dump, and I think that's what's caused this great controversy right now, even though, as I said, here in Washington, it really isn't getting very much attention.
Thanks, Patty.